All right. Welcome into the second edition of the Blue and Gray Rice Football Preview Show. I am your host, Matthew Bartlett, Director and Managing Editor at the Roost. I am joined, as always, by my friend, JP Heath, Rice Owl's voice. We got a 1 week down, another week in the books. Feeling good. Have you recovered from your trip out to LA, Mr. Heath?
It's funny you say that. As I get older, I was just talking with my dad about this yesterday. True life story from Rice Owl's voice. I almost hadn't until today. I got a really good night's sleep last night, but I had some other life events. Had a little puppy dog in puppy dog hospital. He's okay now. Long live Dirk. But it took me a while to get back into the swing of things. The game was rough at some times, but always tough coming from the West Coast. I don't have to use my hands, but West Coast back to the good old Texas. Matthew, back where we belong. So recovered.
Back where we belong. Back where Rice belongs.
Dang
Space
right,
City,
buddy.
USA. If I can
Yes. How about
foreshadow.
that? Yeah.
We're going to get into some football, but I know this has been making its rounds on social media, but we want to throw up the jerseys that these boys will be wearing this weekend. One, just because I think they're freaking awesome. And
Amazing.
whenever you can get NASA to work with you on anything, I'm in. That's my official statement.
I love the back of them. Josh Piercy, the model, by the way, one of the Owls captains. It's got on that the shoulder patch. It's got the famous excerpt of the John F. Kennedy to the Moon speech. If you did not say this was a NASA game, you would look at that whole setup head to toe from Piercy and say that looks like a spacesuit. That looks like something an astronaut would wear. I love it. So kudos to all the Rice folks involved there. And who more appropriate than Josh Piercy, the Adonis, to be the Owls model. He is cut like a rock. But yeah, what a 60th anniversary, and what a way to pay tribute. They've got a lot of events surrounding that coming up, starting 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. So get the kiddos out there early, Brother Bartlett, for a lot of space-themed activity.
We can pull an all-dayer. I'm in. I think it's great. I love that there were debates sparked on the internet with this, because I guess I'm trying to remember who did it first with the space uniforms. I know UCF did it the loudest. UCF does everything the loudest, actually, a couple of years ago. And then they were debating who had the best space-themed uniforms, which I don't know. I think Rice's are up there. I think they're my favorite alternate Rice jersey that they've put together since it's been quite some time.
Yeah, they had one 7-8 years ago, as I think I talk out loud, because I remember Luke Turner doing something similar. I'm trying to think what that would have been in. Maybe it was the 50th anniversary of like Rice. No, that would have been more than that. So I don't know. But yeah, I do remember some about 7 or 8 years ago. These are, when you go viral, Matthew, that's a big thing these days. And when you get saltiness from other fan bases, that means you're doing something right in your own camp. So yeah, can't wait. I'll have the binoculars out and those nice shiny metallic astronaut jerseys. I can't wait to call the action Saturday night.
Yeah, and this is my official petition, Joe Carlgard, whoever makes the decisions on things like this. If Rice wins this game in space jerseys, we got to bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for anything. This could be their normal jersey, and I'd be happy with it.
Yeah, and they have the helmet too. I guess they had a 9/11 tribute. That might have been what I was trying to think of earlier, where they started wearing the American flag and on the Rice, they had the Rice logo, and that we've seen that a lot over the few years. But even just bringing that helmet back and making Chris Snell and the folks and the equipment team work a little overtime. But yeah, these are spiffy. These are what the kids would say, on fleek, Matthew.
On fleek.
At least in 2018.
This is in your Rolodex of young hip JP-isms.
And in
Oh, man.
2019, it was at least. So
There you go. Well, before we get in trouble, let's march forward to some football. We could wax poetically about uniform combinations, I'm sure, all
on
throughout
fleek,
the
on
ages.
fleek.
But yeah, on fleek. We'll skip next time. We'll work on that. On fleek, what was not on fleek this past weekend was the result of, did I use that right, of the Rice football game against USC,
You
hoping
did.
obviously for some better results this coming weekend. If you want to hear a breakdown of USC, go listen to the Roost pod. Shameless plug right there. That's out anywhere you
Yes.
get your podcast. We kind of dove through what happened, what went wrong, what went right, kind of takeaways from that. This show, as it does every week, we're not going to dwell on the past. We are going to move forward to space and beyond in the game and kind of talk about the McNeese State Cowboys, kind of what we can expect from them on both sides of the ball and how Rice matches up. So if we're opening up the conversation on McNeese, I thought as I was doing my research, one of the most interesting tidbits that I feel like we just had this conversation when we talked about USC and not knowing who was on their roster. Here was the fun little tidbit that I found, JP. McNeese added 19 transfers this offseason. 10 of those guys started this weekend. And keep in mind, there's only what 22, 24 starters plus punters and specialists and whatnot. Like half of their starting lineup were transfers. 15 of those transfers played. So as we try and get a feel on who is going to be lining up across from Rice this weekend, it kind of still feels TBD, even though we're in week 2. Is this kind of the read that you've gotten trying to make sense of who is who and where is where?
Yeah, 100%. We get in our FBS bubble. When you look at FCS, you think the transfers impact there forever. The portal before the portal, kids. Pull up a chair, as Uncle JP likes to do. You know, back before, everybody could transfer 19 different times. Yes, I'm a little salty about that rule. Believe there should be some commitment. But FCS was where you had that free transfer. And as a product of a former FCS broadcast crew and Division II guy at heart, you would see a lot of these transfers and looking down, not connecting the dots on necessarily positions with players, but you've got Georgia Southern, you've got Jackson State, you do have a couple of Houston kids, you've got San Diego State, you got Louisiana Tech, you've got Kentucky, and that's just a few of them there. And that's just on the offensive side alone. So they've mixed a lot of Texas guys, but yeah, they have a really good quarterback in Ransom. They run the air raid, like Coach Bloomgren was telling me Monday night. There's some little obviously differences. No one runs it exactly like Lincoln Riley, but Coach Goff's going to first-year coach. Came from a great program at Valdosta State, and they're going to spread it out and try to run. So you're trying to test a Rice passing game that mostly kept the USC guys in front of them, but they gave up a lot of the middle of the field against the air raid on Saturday night out on the left coast. So how does that translate into this one? What adjustments do they make? I probably answered another question coming up, but he brought a couple of Valdosta State transfers as well on the offensive side too. So how does Rice respond to the air raid after seeing it just the week before? That'll be one big key, obviously, to look out for.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have to start getting more creative as the how mummy air raid tree has grown and blossomed, because I feel like Rice is going to see the air raid 3 or 4 times this season based on who they're playing, and I don't think any of those teams are going to run it the same way. Rice really doesn't. This might be closer to the traditional sense of the air raid than maybe Rice has seen in some time.
Yeah, because of the power tendencies, more based on the running game, and a lot of it goes back to the running game. But I sorry I didn't prep you this beforehand. If you could extend me just a little latitude, the late great Guy Morris just passed away, former Baylor coach. He's at Kentucky, and I'm getting somewhere with this. When I was calling games at A&M Commerce, I did it 3 years at my alma mater, proud Harvard of Hunt County, Matthew Bartlett. he was the head coach, and he taught me. I mean, I'm fascinated with coaching trees and how you walk around. You just know. Even back when I was doing high school sports, everybody knows everybody. It's a tight knit fraternity still. But Guy Morris worked closely with Hal Mummy, who most credit with inventing the air raid. And Coach Morris, rest in peace to GMO, that he would they be drawing up plays. And Valdosta State was one of the stops of Coach Morris on the offensive line, where he was under Hal Mummy. I believe I might be getting a couple coaching trees blurred, but long and the short of it is that air raid has a lot of roots with Valdosta State, where Coach Goff came from. So yes, that's why we've been doing this for this season plus. We connected there because I'm sure this McNeese version with Coach Goff will be more similar to the traditional air raid. How do the Rice DBs stack up in that, and how do they go against a talented athlete like McMahon that can run the ball as well?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You look at what they were able to do last week against Montana State. I believe ranked number 4 in the country in FCS, and they were a playoff team last year that went pretty far. So a good program. I was kind of following along as the Rice game was ended. It was a 1-score game midway through the 4th quarter until Montana State kind of put it away. So I know McNeese kind of had a couple down years under Frank Wilson, I guess former UTSA head coach, who's now back at LSU. So, and this is one of 3 of 4 straight that Rice will face of new head coaches at their current schools. So another degree of not sure what we're going to get. But that was a long segue getting to this offense and what they're going to do. What we did see last week is we saw they're going to throw the ball around a lot, and they did find some leeway on the ground, a couple explosive play. Running back D'Angelo Durham had a long run of 75 yards, which is pretty good if you can bust a TD there. But the rest of the running game, we're probably looking at a bit more manageable, kind of keep the defense honest versus I think what we saw with like USC and, even North Texas adjacent. You see air raid spread systems that are really committed to the running game. I think this is an offense that will run, but just so that you aren't expecting pass on every single play. Those would be kind of those pieces. I think we got to hit on quarterback and kind of set here for a second, which is going to be interesting because they played 2 guys last week. They had the guy who was probably more on the running side and Cam Ransom, and then they had Knox Kadum, see if I'm pronouncing those correctly, who was kind of the guy that they trusted to pull the trigger most of the time. What is your general opinion on kind of splitting things up like this? We've seen Rice do it in years past. We've seen a lot of schools do it. And if this is going to be the case, that they're going to kind of bifurcate their offense between a guy who can run and a guy who can pass, how do you think that sets up for the Rice defense? Maybe kind of getting a sneak peek at what they might be doing.
I haven't talked to the Rice coaches specifically about that. Usually we do get some insight with that later in the week, but I would think that would make things a little easier when there's the running guy, there's the passing guy. But I mean, Army had done that a little bit in the past, but Army could drop one behind you every now and then when you weren't expecting. But I mean, obviously Kadum's no slouch, so maybe he could get more of the reps after the good game last week, transferred from Virginia Tech. But also you look on the offensive side, Ransom did some good things at Georgia Southern, which is more of the running team, like you said, with their version of the triple option. But I would think, I gave you my answer. I think it would make it easier, but after, not to dismiss any part of this part of the preview, but it comes down to the offensive side for Rice. They just can't beat themselves as many times as they did last week. You'd like them to come out and make a statement. And this one that lets you know, okay, that was just USC. Like Coach Bloom had referenced in the past, the biggest improvement, he said, after the game is from week 1 to week 2. they've got to do this. They've got to do that. And in the past, they've had some, I don't want to call them dangerously close. I guess I just did. But you remember the Texas Southern game. Nate just told me his name the other night, that quarterback that threw for a bushel of yards. And then the shootout against Prairie
Andrew
View A&M.
Body. Is that right?
Yeah, Body. Yeah, Body. Body had the body that night, Bodie Body. And then Coach Bloomgren's first win, they had the walk-off field goal win against Prairie View A&M. So McNeese fans watching this, you've got one nincompoop and one educated guy who has a very good day job.
We'll let you guess who's who.
We're not by any means dismissing McNeese. All the respect in the world for what they have done with their program. And Rice is not, I mean, there's Wagner, 15-ish. Rice doesn't play too many FCS teams. The one against Lamar was canceled because of dang Rona. But, I mean, FCS teams have played Rice close in the past too. So I think Rice would love to come out and make a statement letting everybody know, hey, USC game was in the past. And they could look forward to the rest of the season after they try to get this win Saturday.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple interesting things when you kind of talk through Rice's history. And this is, just for the record, the first time that Rice and McNeese have ever played on the gridiron. So that's a fun factoid. You don't get many new matchups in today's world of college football, especially two programs that are, all things considered, relatively close from a geographic speaking. You can bus over if you want to. I don't know what McNeese is doing. But so I think it's interesting when you look at the FCS teams that Rice has played. You mentioned the Prairie View game. That was game one for Mike Bloomgren on a roster that was pretty thin and was playing scout team running backs at corner in game two. So yeah, I'm not going to discount that one, but that's kind of get the pass. I think the Texas Southern one is interesting. And I think kind of what I circle as something that I really want to see in this matchup is when we watched the USC game, we watched what Rice was able to do in the trenches, both on the offensive line and the defensive line. It didn't really feel like at any point that Rice was not physical enough. They were getting outbigged by the bodies in the trenches. I thought USC did a couple things with their speed and just their ability to kind of pin their ears back when the game got out of hand on the outside, on the edges against a redshirt freshman offensive tackle. I think they had some success there. I think what is going to be different in this game is Rice is going to have the size advantage. They're going to have the bodies advantage in the trenches. And now these guys have played one more game. And I think that's something that even at this point last year, defensive line was still in a bit of a flux. No DeBraylon Carroll, and the offensive line. I mean, this is really the first time that Rice is bringing back, hopefully back to back 5-man starting units that they feel good about and not picking and choosing on a week-to-week basis who's healthy and who's left. So I think that's interesting. If Rice can have their way in the trenches, I think that's something early that could prevent, because Rice didn't get pressure last year against Texas Southern, and Body just lit them up. If they can get pressure, makes things a whole lot of interesting. So that's one piece. When we do look a little bit closer at I almost said the Texas Southern defense, not them,
McNeese.
the McNeese State defense. They got a couple guys, a handful of transfers on that side of the ball. Ahmad Willis Dalton coming over from the University of Houston, coming back to town. He led them in tackles last week. He had 8 and he had a sack. Mason Kinsey had a sack. They had a couple guys, Cordell Williams, out there as well that have kind of made plays. So that middle with Williams and Willis Dalton at linebacker, I think especially if you look at a Rice team that wants to run the football, having some proven guys in the middle who have at least played well for one game and have some track record with them, that'll help. Anybody else is kind of your cursory look at this depth chart on defense or any position group that you think is going to be an interesting matchup for Rice?
Yeah, you mentioned the guys that statted from last week, because we don't know outside of that one game and having the stat sheet. I did not see a replay. I did watch some highlights of that game, and McNeese looked to body up against the Montana State team that was playing for the national title. Of course, Coach Goff is going always They want to get bigger and beefier after the first year of a program. But yeah, they're getting talent. I mean, you're not getting just regular Joe Schmoes when they transfer and they come to FCS. They're playing immediately, and most of the time, they're not bench warmers that come from FBS. They're getting guys that can really play. One thing I did want to mention, and I should have mentioned this at the very start when we were just kind of glazing over USC, but you talked about that physicality and it triggered something. So I go to the men's room, standing in line, and a USC, it wasn't a coach, but it was somebody connected to the USC program, heard them talking at halftime, and they said, man, those Rice guys are taking it to us. And I was like, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool compliment. I forgot to tell Coach Bloomgren that. But that goes to that physicality. Yeah, USC did not win that game in the trenches. Rice did a few things, unfortunately, that shot themselves in the proverbial foot. But yeah, so maybe segueing to this game, they can pound the rock, control the clock, play that great defense. We've heard that drilled into our heads over these 5 seasons. And that starts up front. I don't know much about the McNeese front guys right now, but you saying that made me think of how at least some folks with USC really respected Rice's physicality in the trenches, and hopefully that come week 10, come week 12, when they could be playing for something up in Denton, that's where that's going to make the difference, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned that playing for something and what Rice has left, kind of the outlook on their schedule. So I know you can't, and coaches would shoo me for saying this. You can't paint with a broad brush and overlook anybody. But this McNeese program hasn't beaten an FBS team since 2013. You don't want to be the first team in a decade to break that streak. When we kind of looked into the season, of course, you paint the rosy picture. I don't know why it's a rose, but it's a rosy picture.
A rosy picture, and you can put a cherry on top. That's
there you go.
What you're looking for, yeah.
This is why I keep you around, JP. So you kind of put that in your mind's eye, and you're like 12-0 national champs. It's all going to be great. But in reality, everyone does this, and we do it too. Shh. You take your pencil out and you go down every little game on the schedule and you write, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, and then just a question mark. I don't know. Going into the season, Rice was probably supposed to, in air quotes, lose to USC. That was going to be a game that was going to be hard to win from the talent level alone. Obviously, you would have taken a win, but Rice being 0-1 at this point, I don't think is particularly shocking to anybody. On the other side of the coin, you look at the McNeese game in this program. This is a game they're, supposed to, in air quotes, win, and they should have a good advantage. We talked in the trenches. Bradley Rosner got 1 catch against USC, which is bonkers. I don't think that's going to happen again. Luke McCaffrey, I don't think he had a catch after the second quarter. That's not going to happen again. Ari Broussard only averaged like 2.5 yards per carry. That's not going to happen again. Like, nobody's going to score, 6 straight touchdowns against this defense again for quite some time. I guess there was
3 pick sixes.
Yeah. Or 3 pick sixes. So you got to flush that. But that's kind of what I'm looking at. And that's kind of the challenge that we have. Rice will have looking at this game this weekend is kind of taking care of business, because this has been, a program that has punched up above their weight class. You look at the upset win they had at UAB last year. They beat Marshall. They've given a good Houston team, a good Arkansas team, a ride at times. So we know they can punch up. I want to see them take care of business against a team that, they talent wise, you line them up, and I want the Rice side on just most matchups out of the blue. It's going to be finding, and this isn't our job. We just get to sit back and talk about it, right? But it's going to be on head coach Mike Bloomgren and the staff, and identifying the 2 or 3 guys that on each side of the ball that, hey, these are the guys we can't let beat us, and stopping those guys. And if they can do that, we should be sitting pretty, smiling, sunshine and rainbows. Happy Saturday.
And rosy cherries and all that good stuff. They do have three first-team defensive guys from the Southland coaches/media vote. Mason Kinsey, you mentioned earlier, he had a sack up there at Montana State. Cord Green is another first-team defensive lineman, and Cordell Williams as well. And they don't have anybody on the second team, but they had one. I won't name them all, but they had four guys on offense that were first or second team all conference. So this isn't a team that is totally going to have the cupboard bare coming in. Coach Goff, fantastic coach, and he'll probably get the McNeese program back up and running eventually. I just hope it's not on Saturday, but this is a very proud program. I expect a lot of fans to come over there. There's a lot of local ties in there. Hopefully the Rice fans can get loud. And it is Space Day. Were you done talking? Because I had a NASA story. Were you done talking X's and O's? Okay.
I'm all for space. Let's go to the moon.
So I'll probably tell this again on the broadcast so folks get a double dish. But I had not been to NASA until this past summer. The wife and I took an impromptu trip. We live closer to town now. We were going to go to the Fine Arts Museum, but it was booked up and it was just too hectic to get in. So he said, "Hey, let's go to NASA." And that is beyond comprehension to think of the human accomplishment to do what they did, putting man in space is just beyond comprehension. And think of that vision, that dream, all started at a little patch of land where they will be playing the football game. That should be stressed too. That is super, super cool how that is coming about. Not 60 years exactly to the second, but we also had a Rice tie in the past. Our great former engineer, Frankie Hicks, is still around. I need to go down and see Frank again. He ran audio on that JFK speech and worked, I forget if it was for KPRC at the time or if he was doing radio, but he was one of the audio technicians at the JFK speech. Why? We do things because they're hard. And then just to have that is a really, really cool. So bravo to the Rice folks for everything, putting this together, and hopefully the cherry on top of the rosé get a W Rosie coming up on Saturday. See what I did there?
Get some wine too. I'm in. Hey, first word spoken for the moon, Houston.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And there's
I'm
also a Wendy's across from NASA too, which really amused me. I forget if I told you that story, but my wife in the other room now, she took the day off school. I don't know. I just thought it was really funny. On one side of the street, you had this height of human endeavor and what man can do, and we work together. And at the other side, I see a Wendy's with 3 cars in the parking lot. And it really just, it really made me laugh because I was thinking about that driving up. Like, yeah, I mean, almost anything is possible. And then I turn, I see somebody coming out with a 99-cent Frosty, and it really just
hey, fast food might be a modern miracle. It depends on what establishment you're at. But before we get too far off the rails, we'll both be on this Saturday. You'll be on the call. I'm going to plug for you. You can add whatever you want. Go find on social media the view from the booth. You can listen to the radio call with JP, and you can watch him as he waves his hands instead of just having to listen to it. I enjoy watching you guys. Yeah, we got the charts.
This is the old one from USC, but I need to incorporate that. See, come on, Pillin, you're not busy enough. Let me get Bordy on here. Get Bordy some time too. But we could, maybe we could
secrets,
do yeah. So that we'll have the spot and charts, and I told Nate they're not many. I could not imagine a broadcast that has more fun than we do. With respect to the game, obviously we say first down and who scores and whatnot. But yeah, we like to have fun. Varsity Network app as well, Rice House Game Day app, and we're on the radio call inside the stadium, 95.3 FM as well too.
Make sure you don't forget the score. Got to say the score. That's important.
I never say it enough. People say it. I'm like, come on, get off my back. But I say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, whenever they say that.
One day at a time. All right. That'll be us for this week. We will be back next week talking about
That's Nixon,
whatever they're
I
calling
guess.
themselves other than Lafayette, the Cajuns, whoever they are. That'll be next week. For now, JP, myself, we're signing off, and we'll see you Saturday. Rice fight.
Never dies. Why does Rice play Texas?